We'll give folks a chance to get in here. Um, we're excited today to have Norma Ramirez Demise with us. And we'll do a little introduction with her in just a little bit, but she's a longtime friend of Missouri Main Street. We actually say she's part of our Missouri Main Street family. So we're excited to have her with us here today, helping us with our new webinar series on capacity building for Main Street programs. And I see a lot of folks coming in that we had talked to over the past few weeks and sharing this new opportunity. We did receive a grant from USDA for their Rural Community Development Initiative area. And it's allowing us to bring this series to you. There will be a webinar every other month on various topics related to building that capacity as a newer Main Street program, or Norma's probably going to talk about it, the ebbs and flows of Main Street. And sometimes, we may even be a program that's 10 years old, but we've had a big change in leadership and need to go back to some of those fundamentals. So I'm excited that you're here today. And Norma, let's go ahead and get started. Norma was previously with Main Street America. And like I said, a longtime friend of Missouri Main Street. You've been coming here how many years, Norma?
Well, definitely 17 years.
17?
And yes, and it's been fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to continue to be part of the Missouri
Great,
Main Street family.
great,
So good
great,
morning.
great. Well, I want to thank Paul. Paul's already started it in the chat, but if everybody would say hello and what community they're with, that would help Norma realize who our audience is. So go ahead and in that chat, put who you are and where you're from. We'd appreciate that. While you're doing that, just let you know, we're in a webinar format. We are recording this, so we'll add this to our library. In fact, we'll probably create a new little category or channel of capacity building stuff. And so you can use this webinar in the future with new board members, new committee members, and it'll be in our library for you to access. So keep those hellos coming as we get started. Norm, I think we can go ahead and start the presentation and do that. You are in webinar mode. Feel free to use the chat. There's also a Q&A area that you can ask questions. Um, Feel free to pop questions in there as we go. We have reserved 10 minutes at the end for some Q&A. We'll actually probably stop the recording so that your questions aren't recorded in case you want to ask something that maybe you don't want immortalized in our video. And then have a Q&A. And you can either do it through the Q&A or we can also bring you into the webinar if you want to ask it in person. So continue those hellos coming. We appreciate you all being here today. And Norma, I think we're ready to get started.
Thank you so much, Keith. Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be with you and have the opportunity to share and to just confirm to you we're all in this together. And as you build your program, as you renew or innovate your programs, working with people in committees and in our boards, et cetera, is such an essential part of our work. So I'm happy to be here. As you can see from the first slide, I went through the registration. I always like to research the communities a little bit, so get to know you through your communication tools. But I'm very happy to be here. Like Keith said, I've been in Main Street for 25 years already. First, spent a good number of years at the local level directing a Main Street program that it was brand new. So I know what it is to build a program from the ground up and grow it from year to year. But I also spent 17 years almost with Main Street America before I decided to go on my own practice. So I'm here to just share with you some strategies and happy to be part of this effort. When we look at committees, I really hope that this webinar helps you take a look at the heart of the objective, that it's to understand how can we strategize or get inspiration truly to empower and energize our committee members that are volunteers. When I say, you hear me saying committee members, I'm referring to the volunteer committee people that we have, the leaders, the members of each committee, not necessarily the members of our organization, but hopefully, of course, your members are also engaged in your efforts, but also ensure that our committees remain active, engaged, and going and energized, like we said. I really went through again your communities, but I also wanted to include some examples from other communities throughout Missouri, but also across the country. I've worked with hundreds of communities. And like I said, you're part of a family. So whether you have questions, you're wondering, you're looking for inspiration, we can take a look at many examples of how communities are doing Main Street across the country. But in reality, what I'm hoping is you always see and seek the inspiration for your own community on making it your own, not just copy and paste, but it's about what works with your community in particular. So let's get started. The first part of this webinar speaks about empowering, and I wanted to make sure that we understand, at least from our perspective with regards to committees, what does it mean to empower our committees? And the dictionary and now AI helps us easily get a definition. And I liked to share with you this that I found. It says to really have the authority, the resources, and the support. I call empowering committees to succeed, to ensure that their environment at working with our organizations is such that gives them the ability, shares the ability to succeed. And so with that in mind, you'll see again a lot of examples that I wanted to highlight, visuals from other communities and how they highlight what it is to have their committees. And I like this from Clinton in Mississippi that highlights that Main Street committees that they have are the wheels that make Main Street move. We truly believe that committees make things happen. While the board defines the strategies, identify them, and in many ways comes to the committees to work, it is the committees who implement the work, and we value people that serve in the committees and the leadership that they provide to the revitalization efforts. But also empowerment really means that with the ability to succeed means that we understand and define success. What is success looking like? Sometimes we get people involved in one project or a number of projects in committees without defining success. So the first thing that we want to do not only is define what success looks like, but then understanding how each committee and the committees that we need can help us move the work forward. So you might have pictures from your events or your different projects that highlight what you think it's a great picture because it shows the heart of what you're trying to do. But I use this picture of one of the communities that I visited as an example. And again, feel free to share with us copies of pictures that you think this is what you need to be using because we had success in that event, but also its overall success and what does success look like. And I'm hoping that you can, in the chat or in your notebooks, define for yourselves and with your organizations, with your committees, what does success look like, not only in the big picture, but also for each committee and with each committee. And so this picture, I'm hoping you can reflect on it and tell us in the chat, but also for yourself, what does success look like in this picture? Why is this picture a copy of success? And this success, it really reflects what we want to achieve right? Overall, the revitalization of our district means that the people in our community is enjoying the district, that the district has businesses that offer the products and services that we need, that the environment, the physical ambience is welcoming and highlights the strong sense of place and character and identity of our district. And that among all of us, we can feel that we have a community we're proud of. And so if any of that is what you felt looking at a picture like this, that is basically what we all are trying to achieve, that comprehensive, more than one thing, physical, economic, in the identity and in the engagement that we build community through this process. So comprehensive revitalization through and showcasing the district as the heart of our communities. So in many ways, success is really looking at that sense of vitality, economic vitality, that sense of place, that distinctive identity, that center of activity that the community can come and enjoy, and that people are proud to say, I'm part of it. I'm part of this effort. I have a strong sense of ownership in the community, and I show it by engaging. And so as you can see, you saw the big picture. Now you come into the picture of success for each community. At the end of the day, what we work for is not on a project to achieve the project by itself or the event or the meeting. It is about what we're trying to achieve on the overall future. But then year to year define what progress and success means for us as well. So keep that in mind as we go through then not only what we want to achieve, but also, and very importantly, how do we make it happen? And that's where committees come into place, right? We make it happen in Main Street and through Main Street by having a dedicated downtown management program. That's what Main Street promotes. And at the heart of the organization, if we really consider projects and activities, that's great. But at the heart of the organization is the people that make it happen. So the traditional structure of Main Street, where you're going to see a hierarchy of the board is here, then the staff. I'm hoping that we can switch from a very traditional hierarchical structure to more of a culture of team and collaboration where people are connected to each other and with each other to make things happen. So think of your volunteer structure as one that is a connected one. And so where the board of directors is, of course, legally and fiscally responsible for the organization, if you are able to have staff or get to the point in your future to plan for staff, staff is going to oversee the operations and inspire and motivate people. But it is also the opportunity to have the support of committees, teams, task forces, etc. We can call them different names as long as they motivate our community to come and be part of this effort through committees. And it is basically where then we engage in programming. Once we have this structure, and as we build this structure, we engage in programming based on what we can achieve with the people that we have, and then continue to grow as we involve more community members and district stakeholders. So the board of directors then really is tasked with the opportunity not only to be fiscally responsible and legally responsible for the organization, but it is about defining that direction, that strategic direction. So with the community, Main Street has a framework, and you are probably already very familiar or learning. And through the different trainings with Missouri Main Street, you're going to see those opportunities to gain more understanding. But we start with the community to understand the vision that we all can develop and have together to understand what are the market conditions, then the board identifies a strategy or strategic direction and defines what are the anticipated outcomes with support from the committee. The committees then help us implement the work of revitalization in each aspect that is crucial for success: the economic, physical, the opportunities to market and promote the district, as well as the opportunities to engage the community. This is what then we call the 4 points of the Main Street approach, which takes a look at how do we achieve comprehensive revitalization. And so it is by highlighting what each committee does that we are basically taking care of each aspect of the work of revitalization. So here, an example from Belmont that looks at highlighting Main Street committees and the work that they do. In many ways, you're going to see that, and we recommend it often, that as you start Main Street, the implementation of the revitalization effort, that you consider a committee under each of the 4 points. However, depending on your capacity, if the capacity is not there yet to have 4 committees, you can join forces. Some communities do, look at the economic and physical aspects under one team, and the promotion and organization aspects. And when I say organization, meaning engaging of the community under another team. And as you grow, then you give yourself the opportunity to focus in each specific area and grow as well. Very important highlight that I just wanted to make, that as we think of organization, I see some communities thinking organization is the board governing. And to be honest, if at the beginning, that's the capacity that you have, we understand that is definitely a way to utilize the board support. But as you grow, it is going to be important that you empower the organization committee to really take a look at the opportunities to engage people, to look at volunteering and communications and fundraising in support of what the board provides. But the board needs to take a look at the bigger picture as much as possible. Here's another one of Palmetto, a community in Main Street, in the Main Street movement in Florida. And so again, something good to feel that you're part of a family, more than 1,200 communities, 1,600, depending on accredited affiliate where they are. There's plenty of examples that can help you highlight, okay, what works for us, what fits with us, and then decide what works for you. As your board identify the strategy, we see many communities focusing on the bigger picture of, okay, we want for people to shop, play, and stay with us, to really, that's the big picture, right? And the message. But more and more, we want you to consider what's the specific strategy you want to work on for the next 3 to 5 years. And that's where we get into identifying your own and your specific community's transformation strategy. And so, for example, here, Main Street Enid in Oklahoma, the message in general, it's about, yes, come and enjoy the district, right? But their strategy to get there acknowledge the opportunities that they have with increasing the residential housing. And so they decided to work on that as their strategy for the next 3 years. If they increase the residents, the people that come and use the district 24/7, they'll be able to have enough people to really achieve the big picture as well overall. And that's going to be important, that as we define what we want, we don't get overwhelmed and saying we want to do it all. There's an opportunity to understand where's your market at this time, what the community wants you to do, what are the opportunities, and to work on those opportunities from one year to the next with the strategic direction in mind. I wanted to highlight Warrensburg and other communities in Missouri, for example, highlight also a similar big picture that really align with the Main Street a 4-point approach. And if that is what you have at this time, it's fantastic because you're telling people that you want to promote, improve, and preserve the heart of their communities. But as you work on identifying the market opportunities and what the community's vision is, you're going to probably identify that having a college or having a percentage of your population younger than 18 or perhaps younger than 30, it's an opportunity to really get more vibrancy and vitality through specific focus, through identifying the strategy. I see that a similar strategy in downtown Liberty as well. So again, while we have a big picture, it's important that internally we celebrate and identifying specific strategies, and Missouri Main Street can help you do that throughout this process of working with you. That can help us focus from one year to the next 3 years, for example, on the areas that can help us grow that vitality. So if you identify one specific strategies, perhaps two, we again don't recommend more than that, then the board is able to look at the strategy as the main area of focus, but the committees then take a look at that strategy and say, what is my role with this strategy? And how do we, through projects and efforts, then align with those projects? That is part of empowerment, to be able to understand what our roles are and not just say, oh, I want to do events. Well, yes, for positioning the district, events are a tool, but it's not the only thing, and it is certainly not the focus. And so we want to make sure that it is an opportunity, that you have the opportunity to define. So here's the example that I highlighted. For example, the communities in Missouri, HDLI, a really great community, has gone through the journey. And again, you're going to see, oh, wow, I want to be like that community. Be mindful that it took and it's taking communities more than 1 year to get there. And it's what I call the journey. The revitalization is not a project, it's a journey. And we will achieve progress and success 1 year at a time, 1 month at a time, sometimes, as long as we define our focus. So if your capacity is there, you're going to see the opportunity to have the number of committees that you need. In many ways, the 4-point approach can guide you with those committees like economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. But if your capacity and your goal is more specific, then you can have either subcommittees or additional committees or teams that address those specific needs. So again, when we think of our community demographics and the goals that we have in the case of Liberty, and again, we're very proud of their efforts as well, then they decided that having a Main Street 53 team, that's basically an opportunity to engage youth from schools through internship programs and opportunities to develop their leadership and their sense of ownership in downtown. That is how we then decide, hey, we need a specific committee or team to focus on the opportunities to align that strategy. Like I was saying, another great example is Warrensburg, that has been in the program for a long time. And again, from 1 year to the next, growing and innovating. And so they have the 4 committees, even when they have all these years, they continue to have that specific focus. But then they've added, as they've grown, committees in specific events or initiatives or efforts. Like Piccadilly is a famous one that is now done in many communities across Missouri, that is basically a fundraising effort that it requires a specific focus and effort. So creating a committee or a subcommittee makes sense. when we look at,
Norma, I'm
yes,
sorry.
go
You
ahead.
and I talked yesterday about, maybe sometimes I'll jump in and ask, give you a break to take a drink, but also to kind of talk about something a little bit more. And you and I talked about this yesterday is, you know, Main Street America a few years ago said that the 4-point committees um, are a structure, one structure for Main Street programs. But for communities that are smaller and have fewer volunteers, fewer volunteer base, that project teams or project committees could be another way to structure it. And you kind of talked about it a little bit. We do have some communities where, organization and promotion merged and design and EV merged into one. But it could be that your project teams are your committees are organized around your transformation strategy. Could you talk about that just for a minute or two? Just because I know we have a lot of smaller communities on here, and several of them do use that project-based structure more so than the four committees.
Very good point, Keith. And I want us to acknowledge that if you're looking at all this and saying, "Oh, it will be wonderful," but I'm not there, that's okay, because we're starting where we are
Hmm.
starting. And if you're saying I have just a handful of volunteers, then yes, let's define first, confirm the focus that can give you the most return. And if it is through a project, for example, that you can not only do the project, and I remember a community in Michigan, for example, was starting, and they decided that they could only do one project, but then align that with each aspect of revitalization, making sure that it's not just about promotion, that
Right.
it is that we really support the business, the economic vitality, that we make things look great in our downtown through that process. And so what they did is, yes, they took a project that first year, and it might be the first few years, and then say, okay, through this project, we're going to address some aspects of revitalization, and then be able to achieve, incremental
Hmm.
progress and growth. So it's very important to not be disappointed to say, I can't have all of them. And I mentioned as well that you might be able to have two committees. Then you can say, okay, this committee will be about design and economic
Hmm.
vitality,
Right.
because it's about the physical and economic aspects. Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
While the other committee will be, so yes, take the steps that you need at the capacity that you have at
And
this time.
yeah, and if you need help kind of talking through that, most of you work with Ben White as a community empowerment grant community or just graduated out of that. We can help you think through that process. And I've also heard, Norman, I think you and I've talked about this before, is that at the minimum, you probably need an organization committee because that is the foundation of the organization. It's the funding, the volunteers, and the partnerships. So that one is pretty important. And then have a project committee outside of that that then focuses on the other 3 points in whatever project you're implementing. I've heard of that model too, just because org really does take a kind of a higher level to the other 3 points.
Right. And also to make the distinction between the role of the board and
Hmm.
the role of the organization point in the Main Street approach,
Right, right,
which is not necessarily governance.
right.
And I'll get to that as we explain that, but I think that's a great point. And just to highlight, whatever structure works for you, what we recommend then is to, what we say in Main Street often is plan the work and then work the plan.
Right.
And it might be small scale, it might be, one step at a time. But one thing I liked about the opportunities that you have with the structure of committees is that opportunity to define a focus for each committee. And so the example from Warrensburg, I really love that they define, again, Main Street, the 4 points can help you do that. You don't need to, you can use what we have there, but make it your own. Then define how this committee will work, whether it's the timeline to meet, and again, be very mindful of when it works for as many people as possible, not just, oh, well, I can only meet at noon, so therefore I will set up the committee meeting at noon. Well, do we have people that have businesses participating? Does it need to be before or after the business hours, etc.? You define what works for the group so that you can promote participation. But also, what specific projects are you able at this time to do that aligns with your strategy? And again, it might be, hey, it would be a list of 10, but honestly, we only have 3 people in the committee at this time. So what our recommendation often is 1 champion or leader per project. And therefore, if you only have 1 or 3 or 5, then you're growing in the opportunity to say we can take on more. But don't overwhelm people from the start, because burnout does happen in the volunteer environment too. And we need to be very careful that we only take the projects that we can achieve with quality. Quantity is not the goal. Quality is. It is better to have 1 single project that can be successful and give you credibility instead of 10 mediocre that barely happened, but hey, we made them happen. We survived. Please consider the quality as the guiding force. And then highlight the committees. There's often, when I go through websites, social media, etc., where we see the board members and even the picture of board members highlighted as here is our board, here is our leadership base. But many times we don't even see the names of the committee members. And I'll highlight that soon as well through this presentation. Recognize the people that are working there, because maybe a friend will look at that and say, hey, I wonder what Martha's doing, and perhaps be involved in the future. And then as you define that work, define the schedule, and make sure that you protect the work plans, because people will come to you with ideas for the next month, for the next 2 months. And then you can say, that is a wonderful idea. Here is an opportunity perhaps for next year's work plan. Would you like to lead that effort and make a proposal so that we can consider that for next year's work plan? But this year, we already have the workload. Or if you actually have the capacity and say, that is fantastic, we should make it happen, then you are able to respond to those ideas. Believe me, people will come with ideas, say, this is what I was thinking you should do. Make sure that you turn that around and say, we can do that together. And you're going to hear what often my peers call normaisms, that with versus for. If we are working for people or just for their benefit versus working with them, Main Street gives us the opportunity to develop a culture where we engage people in revitalization, right? So it's about working with them, not just for their benefit. So if you find yourself saying, are we working for or just with? Are we working with or just for? Then make sure that the answer is also part of the goal. We want to work with the community and their active engagement. So like Keith said, the strategy can guide the work in each aspect of revitalization. And in general, we have 3 areas of focus under each committee or under each of the 4 points. And if you can have a project, that highlights all of them, wonderful. That's the goal. And design, economic vitality, promotion, and organization. Economic vitality is about strengthening the economy of your district, your downtown, and consequently of your community, that local economic power. That design is about that sense of place, right? And about preserving it and enhancing it and making it welcoming and enticing for people to feel that they have a community they're proud of. And promotion is about creating a center of activity for community to enjoy that spirit of community. But also organization, like Keith said, is about people. How do we connect with people? How do we engage them? And how do we help them see that investing in downtown and in Main Street is a great thing to do? And it's not about governing the organization. What did we do from one month to the next? It is about making sure that people are at the heart of our efforts. And so if you are able to have 4 committees, wonderful. If you're able to do one project under each committee, fantastic. Sometimes, like we said, you're going to be able to join forces and say, we're going to keep track of just, there are 2 committees, and we're going to do a project together, or there's just 2 committees that we can do 2 projects. And sometimes the capacity is just to say it's best to do one project like we were talking about, but then make sure that we tackle and address each aspect of revitalization so that we can move that wheel of revitalization forward one effort at a time. The important thing in your efforts is to keep that balance, okay? We cannot make just the things pretty. The streetscape will be pretty, wonderful. But what happens with the empty storefronts, with empty buildings? What good is it to look like a ghost town, right? Well, then let's make sure that we look at every aspect and say, as this committee works on making sure that space is occupied and we have the businesses that complement our Main Street, then the other will work on the physical aspects, and the other one will work on promoting the district, and the other one will work on making sure we have the people. Wherever you are at this time, you can grow from there year to year, but make the most that you can with your existing capacity. And one of the things that I would like to recommend is to bring your committees to life. I mentioned again already that we highlight board members in our communication tools often, and that's great. Don't stop doing that. Even, get deeper into understanding that people want to know who is involved and at what level, because that might motivate somebody else, like I said. So when you bring committees to life, it's not about just recruitment of other people in the community, which is going to be fantastic, but it is about retaining the people that you have, because in today's environment, volunteering is not just about being in, behind the wall and nobody sees me. It is about enjoying something that makes a difference. And I want to be with other people, and I want to make sure that I make that difference and that it's recognized. And that's basically what it is. Leverage your communication tools to show that people in the community, people that you are already working with you, are important. They are a priority in our efforts. So here is a community in Oak Harbor in Washington, where in their communication tools, they highlight not only that the committees are key and crucial to make things happen, but the people are at the center of their movement, our movement, and their organization. And they highlight they're a volunteer-driven organization. So feel proud to say that. Feel okay. It is okay to say, we don't have enough people. Come and join us. But make sure that you say the people we have are wonderful, and we highlight the efforts that they are working on. Make people a priority again through continued education. I often see that when we go to visit communities, whether it's for accreditation visits or strategic planning, sometimes their committees, the volunteer committee members, are telling us, we come to meetings, but we don't know what my role is. Our roles are not defined. So take time to educate your volunteers in each committee, in your board, to make sure that they understand the internal roles within the organization. What is the role of the board, but also what is the role in each committee? Like we were talking, feel free to use these slides or this presentation to share with your board, to share with your committee members as well. And together, work what is specific for your community. But to also understand that just because you have a committee and you understand the focus of the committee doesn't mean that each member feels that they understand their own role. So it's going to be very important to make sure that as we get to confirm what's our role as a committee, we work on making sure people feel that what they want to contribute and what their skills and talent is also fitting with the committee's efforts, and make sure that there's connection within your leadership structure continually. So education about not only Main Street, about what you're trying to achieve specifically within your community, but also about each committee and how each member can contribute because their skills, their talents, their background supports it. So there's going to be meetings where you have, or activities where you have the opportunity to answer questions or provide this orientation and training. And it's an opportunity to also consider maybe we need to develop a specific one-pager that highlights the roles and responsibilities or expectations. And if those expectations are not defined at this time, you don't need to be the only one defining them. Work with the committees. And I often say your number one task when you form a committee is to make sure you have the people and then once you have the people, that the people understand what they can do to contribute to move the efforts forward. So with them, you can confirm what are those goals specific for the committee as well, and those roles. When we say bring the committee to life, put a face, like I said, if at all possible, at least the names, but if possible, the pictures, and say, hey, I'm a business owner, but I volunteer in this committee because I believe in downtown. And let people that you have already be your ambassadors, be the ones that highlight how valuable it is to have a revitalization program. Formal recognition is important too, and Missouri Main Street gives you plenty of opportunities throughout the year. And you can too, if there are opportunities in your community, through your paper, through your communication tools, make sure that you recognize the efforts as well through very, very casual gatherings. It doesn't need to be a gala, but it can be a breakfast where we say, we just want to thank you. Or it can be something in the park where, we can just thank people. But also you can use or utilize your volunteers to highlight how important downtown is and let them feel proud of that. I really like when I see videos of business owners, volunteer members that are highlighting those. To be honest, I find them inspirational and motivation. So leverage the people that you have because they're involved, because they believe in what you're doing, they love it. So therefore, it is an opportunity to share with others. Want to send kudos to Main Street Albany because I see people when I see their communication tools. And so the website, highlights and their structure, they are really motivating because I see pictures about people and also highlighting the different efforts and the focus of your efforts. So kudos. And we can all take a look at where we are and the opportunities to, again, make incremental steps, take incremental steps to achieve our it's important that we avoid burnout, especially because retention is our best recruitment tool. Identify what are the needs, just the strengths, of course, for sure, but also what are the needs, the gaps that we're forcing people to think about things when we need to perhaps have that opportunity to look at those specific needs. So use the 4-point approach. It's not just 4-point committees. It is truly the 4-point approach. In other words, the areas of focus and the elements that impact revitalization. Therefore, you can say, who do we need? Who do we have? And recognize who you have, highlight them, like we said, but also then define the needs and develop specific job descriptions, we say often. Volunteer leadership opportunities is what I call more often than not, to tell the community we need you, specifically because we need your skills. Let's look also at the opportunity to consider what is your reach at this time. Are we reaching just the people we know? And it's okay because it's our comfort zone. We can talk to people, we can engage them, and that's wonderful. But then let's take a look at the community. If you're ready to expand your reach, if you're seeing the need for more people, and let's take a look at your demographics. And using your demographics, you're going to understand perhaps not only the message that you need to develop to invite people to become involved in your volunteer committees, but also how to find them, how and where to find them. So here's an opportunity to say, if you say look at your U.S. Census quick facts, for example, you can just Google quick U.S. Census quick facts for, and then just put your community, and you're going to see a table similar to this, the one that I'm highlighting, where you're going to see the population. So if we looked at that population and you say, I have 1,000 people in my community, or I only have 700, or I have 7,000, then you're going to provide perhaps that will provide an opportunity to say, what will be my goal for volunteers? If 7,000 people or 700 people are in my community, another goal when we think of numbers is to look at your social media and say, if 50 people are already in my social media, or 500 or 5,000, then what's my ideal for a percentage of those people? Is it 1%? Is it 5 or 10? You can decide that just to motivate you in those goals. But then, for example, age and sex is it's a general one that we use to really consider who do we have. And in many cases, our communities have a strong base of young people, people younger than 18. So in this case, Missouri, for example, has about 23% of its population younger than 18. So when 1 out of 4 people in your community are getting to be, part of that population, you can say, wow, youth should be an important component of our efforts. We should engage them. When the 65 or older are part of that percentage, then we can say, wow, they are the ones with experience, skills already proven. So we need to engage the aging in place as well. And then make sure that we understand what is the language that is appropriate within your community. Because sometimes we say seniors, sometimes we say elderly, and those terms again might not go with your community, but so feel free to really be mindful of that. The same way with the youth, sometimes we say kids because of course we see them as young people, right? But sometimes they might say, hey, I'm a high school student, I'm not a kid. So let's be mindful of what we look at. Of course, looking at the origin, you are going to see how diverse your community is with regards to race and ethnicity, and if the language needs to be it's a barrier or it can be an opportunity. Again, I am Spanish speaking, I'm Hispanic, and so I'm definitely able to look and see how much my community can be involved. So leverage those opportunities. And there are other things that you can look at as far as the population characteristics. Are there a good number of veterans in your community? Sometimes it's 5% that I see in communities. So therefore, parades make sense. And why not involve them, those groups as well, so they can help us develop these projects. Same with housing. If we have more housing with children or housing with without children, then it gives you the opportunity to say people can volunteer and have time to volunteer, or are challenged at volunteering because they're working during the day and perhaps they have more than one job. Therefore, we need to consider volunteering and the structure that can work with our community. AARP, for example, can and is probably present in your community. So in addition to knowing your demographics, know your resources. There's no need for you to be the one that actually creates the whole volunteer development program. Organizations in your community might be already engaging people that would like to be engaged in downtown. So partner with those groups. It might be also the schools, like in the case of Liberty and or college town in the case of Warrensburg or Cape. And it might be your churches. Just Serve is one of the websites that I see where churches and nonprofit organizations highlight what volunteer needs they have. You can just post your needs in there as well. So make sure that you understand your demographics to understand the potential for your reach. And recognize new trends in volunteering. It's not sometimes only about creating committees. It's about teams. And I really wanted to highlight the message that Downtown Fayette has in their website captured my attention. And I really send kudos to you, because this is inviting, even for me when I'm not even in your state, right? So where neighbors gather, that is already an engaging invitation, right? And then you tell me that you have opportunities for me to volunteer, and your pictures show people. Therefore, it motivates me, right? But also you can be specific, you can go from there and grow. But messaging is so crucial, because we connect emotionally to others. And so it's important that the message really sends an invitation that I can respond to, and your community members as well. Emphasis on skill-based volunteering is a trend in today's environment. People are working because we have to work, right? But do we love the work that we do? Happy to say in Main Street, we have a passionate movement of people that love this work. But in many ways, in our communities, people might be wanting to do other things in their as volunteers, because they want fulfillment and the use of their skills. So be mindful that this is not about labor force. Come and clean up, come and plant these trees. That's labor, right? But it is about leadership development. And that remote opportunities should be available. What can I do while I'm at home on the computer? And I don't need to go in person because my time is limited. And your structure, again, whether it's a team that is for this project specifically, or an event, or an initiative that is just once done and achieved, or people that want to volunteer on an ongoing basis. Be very mindful of those opportunities and make the message aligned with that understanding of where your community is with regards to volunteer spirit. There are plenty of more opportunities to enhance your capacity and build that and strengthen your capacity to succeed in the upcoming months. And I'm going to let Keith highlight that. And from there, then we'll go into time for questions.
Perfect timing, Norma. I appreciate the message today. There's been some good comments in there. We will share this video, and then also we'll share the slides as a PDF with everyone. We had somebody, Norma, that said, "Hey, this is great. I want to show it to my board. I want to make a presentation to my board." So we appreciate that and you helping us. I put a link in the chat for the other webinars, which are on the left side of the screen there. Again, we received a grant from USDA to provide some additional services, helping meet our communities where they're at. And, webinars is an easy way for people to digest the information and participate. But also, the great thing is we can record it. And now we're going to add to this library that we have. On the right side, you see that Main Street Power Hour virtual meetup. We're doing that monthly. And this is a time for newer Main Street programs, or those that are maybe struggling with one of these topics. that want to talk more about it. And in fact, we have one tomorrow, January 22nd at noon. So bring your lunch. And have a conversation with other Main Streeters. That's going to be led by Julie Turnipseed, who's our community liaison person. Ben and I will pop in from time to time to participate too. But if you want to continue the conversation from today, you can do that through that opportunity tomorrow. But let's say you have a question, you want to dive a little deeper. And in fact, Norma, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
One has to do with you touched on committee meetings and you know, you highlighted Warrensburg and what time their committee meetings were and putting that on their website. I want to see your what you think, but I've been hearing more things about um, sometimes all committees are meeting at the same time, but meeting separately, but at the same time. And then when they're finished meeting, they report out to the entire group about what they're working on. And I think that may be a great way for some of our communities to have that togetherness. Also, keeping an eye and looking for areas that they can partner because maybe they're thinking of something similar. Or back to your point, if there's a project we can do that covers several Main Street 4 points, all the better, because we're accomplishing many things with one project. Can you talk about that just for a minute?
Thank you, Keith. That's an important point. First, let's when I said burned out, what we've learned through Main Street's experience is that sometimes we kill our volunteers' willingness to support us because we meet to death or because we meet for meeting's sake. Without a purpose. So first of all, never meet without a purpose. So if you haven't figured out what the meeting next month will be, figure it out before you tell people you're going to waste their time. But then that's an important piece, purpose. And then with purpose, understanding where everybody is in and how busy. So yes, if you are able to meet, in the evening together, wonderful. But if that has to be an online meeting this month or every other month. That's important. And then the point that you made of coming together with everybody, we encourage boards to bring the committees together because time is such an important factor in our lives now. If you don't need to have 4 committee meetings, where perhaps more than one volunteer is in more than one committee, but you can bring them together and say, the board will meet at this time, the committees will be meeting at the same time, and then everybody comes together for half an hour, 45 minutes. And so it perhaps could be an hour and a half the most for
Mhm.
everything,
Right.
because after we recommend 90 minutes is the maximum before you have to give people the time to breathe and say, I had enough about this training or
Yep.
this meeting. So yes, please consider that because it's a way to build efficiency, but more importantly, it's a way to connect. Don't miss any opportunity to connect you with other committees and other volunteers. Never, or avoid, I would say, but never develop that hierarchical culture where the board is here and nobody knows who the board is. No, the board is just that volunteer leadership base that is looking at the entire picture of the organization. But your committees are so crucial and more important sometimes because they do the work, right? And so those are the opportunities that we say is connecting your people is essential and crucial
Hmm.
for retention and success.
Yep. The other thing, Norma, we talked about yesterday was about oh, I lost my thought, but I do have another question here.
Mhm.
Subcommittees. In the yeah, also in the Warrensburg question or Warrensburg example that you highlighted, their EV committee, you could see in the activities of the EV committee was the farmers market. And that has evolved into its own committee because it's a bigger project, which then reminded me of my real question. Um, Sometimes committees need to realize, and board of directors need to realize that in our volunteer base, we have people that are willing to come and meet monthly and help make decisions and be part of the leadership team for either the board or the committee. But we also have volunteers, and I think it evolved a lot through COVID. We have people that just want to volunteer for maybe 2 or 3 months, or volunteer for a project that's going to take 6 months, or want to volunteer just for an event and be there for 2 hours. Can you speak about that and helping folks understand that not everybody that volunteers wants to eventually be a board member?
You're right. There should be a pipeline of goals, right? That we have people will be in Main Street for the long term. Of course, that is ideal, and we can have somebody from a project to get into a committee to get into the board eventually. In fact, when you look for board members, we're hoping that you look for board members from within your committees because they understand and know the work already. It should not be again a hierarchy of saying, "Oh, here's the board member that just say what to do but doesn't do what they say they do," and so that's an opportunity for Main Street boards
Mhm.
are working boards.
Yeah.
But also importantly, what Keith is highlighting is that in the volunteer environment that we're in, people have different motives and also again the capacity. So see community development as a talent resource development or human resource development. We sometimes fail in the nonprofit environment to see people as our biggest asset. We make plans for fundraising, we make plans for money raising, but we don't make plans for people raising, right? And
Hmm.
so there's an opportunity for us to really look at how do we then look at people in our community and volunteering. And so your organization can see the volunteers are your assets. We've highlighted that already. And therefore, you need to have a management system. And so some will be able to give you, like we used to say to staff envelopes in at their home and in their own time, while others are great at social media and able to do that on their own time. It's going to be very important to ensure that committees doesn't mean very inflexible structure, that it is an opportunity that if you're growing enough, for example, in organization, we talk about fundraising. So if that is a committee that you need to have specifically to focus on that, that is also important. And again, for every project that you decide that you're going to do, have a leader that in turn, their biggest, most immediate task is to ensure that they have the people they need to achieve that. And it might be a 4th of July parade this year. It might be just, the harvest market or farmers market of that tent, and I'll just man it for a day. So we will need to really develop a structure that allows us, as if you had a business, to say, I will have a part-time employee. Sometimes we have part-time volunteers, really part-time in
Hmm.
the sense that they're limited to giving us an hour or to lead a project or to be part of a pipeline that will last for years to come.
Okay. Norma, we're going to end right here, but I want to let everybody know you could post your questions in there. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
Norma, stop sharing. Great. We're going to stop the recording, and if you have any questions or things you'd like to ask Norma, we'll turn that off so you can ask that, and it won't be part of the official record. Maybe you have something you need to share that we don't want recorded. So I'm going to stop that right now.